On the night of December 27th, 1968, soldiers came for Caetano Veloso. They came to his apartment in Sao Paulo without a warrant, without an explanation, and without any intention of giving one. The same night, in another part of the city, they came for Gilberto Gil. Both men were taken to military barracks in Rio de Janeiro. Their heads were shaved at gunpoint. They were placed in solitary confinement. Tiny cells, pitch black at night, a single shaft of light by day. Neither man was told why he had been arrested. Neither man was charged with a crime. The military government of Brazil had decided that these two musicians were dangerous. And the terrifying part is, they were right. Brazil has one of the richest music scenes on the planet. Genres that shape jazz, electronic music, and psychedelic rock. And most of it never crossed the border. I've spent years digging into these stories, and this channel is the door. If that sounds like your kind of rabbit hole, hit subscribe. If you watched my episode on Os Mutantes, you already know the name Tropicália. But that episode was about the band. This one is about the movement, the idea that scared a dictatorship so badly, it arrested the men who created it. And the two men at the center of everything were Caetano Veloso and Gilberto Gil. To understand what they built, you have to understand what they were building against. In 1964, Brazil's military overthrew the elected president, João Goulart, in a coup backed by the United States. Declassified documents would later reveal Operation Brother Sam, the Pentagon's plan to provide guns, fuel, and even combat troops if the coup met resistance. It didn't. The military took power, and the CIA had been monitoring and supporting the conspiracy for years. By the mid-60s, Brazil was under authoritarian rule, but the regime still maintained a veneer of normalcy. Elections still happened, even if they were controlled. The press was pressured, but not yet fully censored. And Brazilian culture was dominated by bossa nova. Elegant, restrained, the sound of a country that wanted to seem sophisticated and unthreatening. The military loved it. It was the perfect soundtrack for a regime that wanted the world to believe everything was fine. Then two young men from Bahia arrived in Sao Paulo and decided to blow the whole thing apart. Caetano Veloso and Gilberto Gil had grown up together in Santo Amaro and Salvador, steeped in the rhythms of northeastern Brazil, forró, candomblé, the raw sound of a region the southern elite looked down on. They were brilliant and they were restless. And in 1967, they discovered an idea that would change everything, the Manifesto Antropófago. Written in 1928 by the modernist poet Oswald de Andrade, the Cannibalist Manifesto argued that Brazilian culture should devour foreign influences, consume them, digest them, and transform them into something new. Not imitation, not rejection, cannibalism. Caetano later said the idea fit the tropicalists like a glove. They would swallow rock and roll, swallow bossa nova, swallow psychedelia and concrete poetry and the noise of the electric guitar, and spit out something that had never existed before. The explosion came at the third festival of Brazilian popular music on TV record in October 1967. Gilberto Gil took the stage to perform Domingo no Parque, a song about jealousy and murder set to a samba rhythm, backed not by acoustic guitars but by Os Mutantes, the wildest rock band in Sao Paulo. The audience didn't know what hit them. Caetano performed Alegria, Alegria, backed by the Argentine rock group The Beat Boys. His lyrics, a kaleidoscope of urban imagery, Coca-Cola, Brigitte Bardot, gorillas, space travel, delivered over electric guitars. It was pop, it was protest, it was both and neither. Brazil had never heard anything like it. That festival was the spark. Over the next year, Tropicália became a full cultural movement. Musicians, visual artists, filmmakers, poets, all pulling in the same direction. The collective album Tropicália O Panis et Circenses, released in 1968, featured Caetano, Gil, Gal Costa, Tom Zé, Os Mutantes, and arrangements by the avant-garde composer Rogério Duprat. It is one of the most radical records ever made in Latin America. The opening track begins with what sounds like a conventional Brazilian song, and then the record grinds to a halt, as if someone has physically stopped the turntable. Nothing about Tropicália was accidental. Everything was designed to disorient, to force the listener out of comfort and into thought. But the movement had enemies on every side. The military government saw it as subversion. The traditional left saw it as frivolous. Why were these musicians playing with electric guitars instead of singing protest songs with acoustic ones? And in September 1968, at the International Song Festival, the collision became public. Caetano took the stage to perform É Proibido Proibir. It is forbidden to forbid, a title borrowed from graffiti scrawled on the walls of Paris during the May '68 uprisings. The audience booed. They threw things. And Caetano, furious, stopped singing and delivered a speech that became legendary. "You don't understand anything. Nothing. You are the same youth who will always kill tomorrow the old enemy who died yesterday." 3 months later, the regime made its move. On December 13, 1968, the military issued Institutional Act No. 5, AI-5, the most brutal decree in the history of the dictatorship. It suspended habeas corpus. It gave the president power to shut down Congress, remove elected officials, and detain anyone without trial. It was, as historians call it, the coup within the coup. Brazil went dark. 2 weeks later, Caetano and Gil were arrested. The conditions were designed to humiliate. The shaved heads were deliberate. One of the accusations against Caetano was desvirilizante, a term meaning he had failed to display the masculine virility the regime expected. His long hair, his flamboyant clothes, his refusal to perform traditional masculinity, all of it was treated as a threat to national security. After weeks in solitary confinement, both men were moved to house arrest. And then came the sentence that wasn't a sentence. Leave Brazil or stay and face whatever comes next. In July 1969, Caetano Veloso and Gilberto Gil boarded a plane to Lisbon. From there, they made their way to London. They moved first to Chelsea, then to Notting Hill, a neighborhood of squatters, hippies, and political exiles from around the world. Gil threw himself into London life. He played with local musicians, absorbed reggae for the first time, and even helped organize the first Glastonbury Festival. Caetano was miserable. He wrote songs that ached with homesickness. London, London, a deceptively cheerful waltz about walking through a city where he didn't belong, became one of his most haunting compositions. They were in exile for 2.5 years. During that time, they released albums. They performed. They survived. But the movement they had created, Tropicália, in its original explosive form, was over. It had lasted barely 2 years. The dictatorship had killed it, or so it thought. In January 1972, Caetano and Gil were finally permitted to return to Brazil. They came back as conquering heroes. The dictatorship was still in power. It would remain until 1985, but it could not undo what had already happened. Tropicália had cracked the wall. The idea that Brazilian culture could devour everything and transform it into something new, that idea could not be imprisoned or exiled. It was already loose in the world. Caetano went on to become the most important figure in Brazilian popular music, period. Gilberto Gil's arc might be even more extraordinary. The man who was arrested without charge, whose head was shaved at gunpoint, who was exiled for the crime of playing guitar. In 2003, he was appointed Brazil's Minister of Culture by President Lula. The prisoner became the minister. He served for 5 years, championing digital freedom and Creative Commons and access to music for Brazil's poorest communities. Here is what the dictatorship never understood, and what every authoritarian regime fails to grasp. You cannot arrest an idea. You can imprison the people who carry it. You can shave their heads and put them on planes and hope the world forgets, but the music survives. Tropicália lasted 2 years as a living movement and became immortal as an influence. Every Brazilian artist who came after, from Marisa Monte to Anitta, carries its DNA. Every time a musician from anywhere in the world decides to smash two incompatible genres together and see what happens, they are doing what Caetano and Gil did in 1967, standing on a stage in Sao Paulo with electric guitars, daring an audience to be furious. The Dictatorship feared a guitar. It was right to be afraid. If this story reached you, there is more on this channel. Every episode is a door into music you didn't know existed but should have found years ago. Click on the video on your screen right now, and I'll see you there.